For Elizabeth Turner, the storage unit looked like a disaster. Black trash bags piled to the ceiling, designer clothes no one wanted, and a family that had forgotten everything their mother left behind. But hidden in those bags was something worth $150,000 and the key to reuniting 3 siblings who hadn't spoken in 5 years. What Elizabeth found wasn't just treasure. It was redemption for a family torn apart by greed, dementia, and the cruelest kind of forgetting. Elizabeth Turner had never imagined her life would come to this moment. Standing in a storage facility parking lot on a cold November morning, her 13-year-old daughter Sophie shivering beside her, counting out their last $263 for a gamble that would either save them or finish them completely. The wind cut through her threadbare coat, the kind of cold that settled deep into your bones and reminded you of every bad decision, every piece of bad luck, every moment when life kicked you when you were already down. She looked at Sophie, this brave, beautiful girl with her father's eyes and her mother's stubborn determination, and she made a choice. She was going to bet everything they had left on hope. 18 months. That's how long it had been since Thomas died. 18 months of watching their savings disappear into medical bills that seemed to multiply like weeds, choking out everything else in their lives. The cancer had been aggressive, brutal in its efficiency. Stage 4 pancreatic cancer. The diagnosis came on a Tuesday afternoon in May, delivered by a doctor who couldn't meet their eyes. 6 months, maybe 9 if the treatment worked. They got 11. 11 months of chemotherapy that made Thomas so sick he couldn't eat. 11 months of radiation that burned his skin. 11 months of experimental treatments that cost thousands of dollars and did absolutely nothing except give them false hope. 11 months of watching the man she loved disappear piece by piece, day by day, until the person in the hospital bed barely resembled her husband anymore. The funeral cost $8,000. Elizabeth had no idea dying was so expensive. The casket alone was $4,000. The cheapest one they had, the funeral director explained apologetically, as if Elizabeth should be embarrassed for asking. The service was another $1,500. The burial plot, the headstone, the flowers, the obituary in the newspaper. It all added up with ruthless mathematical precision. Their savings account, which had taken them 15 years to build to $23,000, was emptied in less than 3 months, and the medical bills kept coming. They arrived every week for 6 months after Thomas died, each envelope a fresh wound, bills for treatments that hadn't worked, bills for medications that had only prolonged the agony, bills for hospital stays and doctor consultations and tests that showed nothing but the inevitable. Elizabeth had been an executive assistant for 28 years. She'd worked for Consolidated Industries since she was 26 years old, starting as a receptionist and working her way up through dedication and competence. She'd managed schedules for 3 different CEOs. She'd organized board meetings and shareholder presentations and company events. She'd been the person people relied on, the one who kept everything running smoothly, the one who never forgot a detail or dropped a ball or let anything fall through the cracks. She'd been good at her job, really, truly good at it. Her performance reviews were always excellent. She got regular raises and yearly bonuses. She thought she was secure. She thought loyalty and hard work meant something. She thought 28 years of service would protect her. But when Consolidated Industries was acquired by a larger corporation, everything changed overnight. They called it restructuring. They called it optimizing for efficiency. What it really meant was that people over 50 were too expensive and therefore disposable. Elizabeth's position was eliminated on a Thursday morning. She was called into Human Resources at 9:15. By 9:30, she was packing her desk into a cardboard box. By 10 o'clock, she was walking to her car in a daze, holding that box like it contained her entire identity, which in a way it did. 28 years of loyalty, 28 years of coming in early and staying late and missing Sophie's school events to finish urgent projects, and it meant absolutely nothing. She was 54 years old, and suddenly nobody wanted her anymore. The job search was humiliating in ways Elizabeth hadn't anticipated. She applied to 32 positions over 6 months. She kept a spreadsheet because organization was in her nature, and she needed to feel like she had some control over the chaos her life had become. Executive assistant, administrative assistant, office manager, receptionist. She was willing to take anything. She didn't care about titles or prestige or career advancement. She just needed income. She needed to pay rent and buy groceries and keep Sophie in school. But the responses were all variations of the same message. We've decided to pursue other candidates. Your qualifications are impressive, but we're looking for someone who can grow with the company. We've filled the position. Thank you for your interest. The subtext was always the same. You're too old. You cost too much. We don't want you. She'd tried retail next, swallowing her pride and applying to department stores and grocery stores and big box retailers. She was willing to work nights and weekends. She was willing to do anything. But even those jobs that paid minimum wage and offered no benefits, went to younger people. College students who needed part-time work, recent graduates who couldn't find jobs in their fields. The manager at one store had been brutally honest. We prefer younger employees. They're more energetic, more adaptable. They don't have the same expectations. Elizabeth had stood there feeling like she'd been slapped. This person who was essentially calling her old and rigid and demanding without saying any of those words directly. She was 54 years old and in excellent health, but perception trumped reality every single time. 18 months of failed applications, and slowly, inexorably, they lost everything. First, the apartment, the 2-bedroom place they'd lived in for 8 years. The landlord had been sympathetic initially. He'd known Thomas, had seen him working on little repairs around the building, fixing leaky faucets and loose doorknobs, always friendly and helpful. But sympathy had limits, and after 3 months of partial rent payments and increasingly desperate promises to catch up, the eviction notice arrived. 30 days. They had 30 days to figure out where to go. Elizabeth found a cheap motel that offered weekly rates, $300 a week for a room with 2 double beds, a bathroom that smelled perpetually of mildew, and a kitchenette with a hot plate that worked intermittently at best. They stayed there for 2 months until the last of their money ran out, and Elizabeth had to make a choice between paying for the room or buying food. Living in their car was a special kind of hell that Elizabeth wouldn't wish on anyone. The Honda Civic wasn't meant for sleeping. The seats didn't recline far enough, and the space was too cramped for 2 people to stretch out comfortably. They'd park in different places each night, trying not to attract attention, trying not to look like what they were. Homeless. The word felt like a brand, something shameful that she had to hide. Sophie slept in the back seat, curled up under every blanket and coat they owned. Elizabeth slept in the front, or tried to sleep, mostly just dozed fitfully between bouts of worry and planning and silent crying when she thought her daughter couldn't hear. They used the bathrooms at gas stations and fast food restaurants. They washed their hair in public restroom sinks. Sophie still went to school every day, and Elizabeth marveled at her daughter's resilience. This girl who never complained, who did her homework in the car by the light of her phone, who pretended to her friends that everything was normal. The storage facility auction was advertised on a flyer at a laundromat, where Elizabeth had been hand-washing their clothes because it was cheaper than using the machines. The paper was bright yellow, impossible to miss. Public storage auction. Saturday morning at 9. Multiple units available. Cash only. Elizabeth had stared at that flyer for a long time, an idea forming in her mind. Storage units went cheap sometimes. She'd heard stories of people finding valuable items in abandoned units. It was a long shot, maybe even a stupid shot, but they were out of options. That night, sitting in the car with Sophie sleeping in the back seat, Elizabeth counted their money one more time. $263. That was everything. The absolute last of what they had. She could use it to buy food and gas for another week, maybe 2 if they were careful. Or she could take a risk. She could bet it all on the possibility of something better. Saturday morning arrived cold and gray, November weather that promised winter was coming, and they still didn't have anywhere to go. They drove to the storage facility at 8:30, arriving early because Elizabeth wanted to see what they were dealing with. There were maybe 20 people already there, most of them clearly professionals. They had trucks and hand dollies and the confident, assessing eyes of people who did this every week, who knew how to spot value and make calculated risks. Elizabeth felt completely out of place in her thrift store coat, with the torn lining and her shoes that had worn through on the soles. She held Sophie's hand tightly, maybe too tightly, but she needed that connection to her daughter. She needed to remember why she was doing this. For Sophie. Always for Sophie. Everything was always for Sophie. The auctioneer was a woman named Rita, who looked like she was in her 60s, with short gray hair and a no-nonsense demeanor that suggested she'd seen everything twice and wasn't impressed by any of it. She worked through the units efficiently, calling out numbers and opening doors with practiced ease. Unit 12 went for $900, furniture and boxes that looked promising. Unit 18 sold for $1,200, appliances and tools that had the professional buyers nodding and raising their hands. Elizabeth watched the numbers climb higher and higher, and with each sale, her hope sank a little more. She couldn't compete with these people. This was a mistake. They should leave. They should save their $263 for food, for gas, for anything except this desperate, stupid gamble. But something kept her rooted in place. Some stubborn refusal to give up that was either courage or foolishness. She wasn't sure which. Thomas used to say that fortune favored the bold. He'd say it whenever they had to make a big decision, whenever they were scared but had to move forward anyway. Fortune favors the bold, Beth. Don't forget that. She could hear his voice so clearly in her head, and she wondered if this was him somehow, some sign from wherever he was now, telling her to take the risk. Or maybe she was just desperate and delusional and making things worse. She honestly didn't know anymore. Then they came to Unit 47. Rita cut the padlock with bolt cutters, the metal snapping with a sharp sound that made several people jump. She rolled up the door and the smell hit them immediately. Not a bad smell exactly, just old. Stale perfume that had gone sour, mothballs, dust, time. The unit was 10 feet by 10 feet, and it was packed floor to ceiling, wall to wall, with black trash bags. Just bags. Dozens of them. Maybe 100. They were stacked without any apparent organization, some bulging and misshapen, others collapsed and flat. In the back corner, Elizabeth could just barely make out what looked like a dresser, and there might have been a mirror somewhere. But mostly the unit was just a solid wall of black plastic bags. The professional buyers started shaking their heads immediately. One of them actually laughed, a short bark of amusement. "Nobody stores good stuff in trash bags," someone muttered loud enough for everyone to hear. "This is garbage. Literal garbage." Another buyer said, "Probably someone's junk from cleaning out Grandma's house. Clothes that should have gone to Goodwill 10 years ago." A third added, "If there was anything valuable, family would have taken it. This is what gets left behind when nobody cares." The crowd was already shifting, checking their phones, looking at their auction sheets to see what was coming next. Nobody was interested in trash bags. Rita started the bidding anyway. It was her job after all. $500? Anyone willing to start at $500? Silence. The only sound was the wind rattling the metal doors. $400? Nothing. $300? Still nothing. Rita's expression was getting more annoyed by the second. She didn't like wasting time. $250? Anyone? This is your last chance before we move on to the next unit. There's got to be something in there worth $250. Elizabeth's hand went up. She didn't think about it, didn't plan it. Her arm just lifted, acting on some instinct she didn't understand and couldn't explain even if someone asked. Every eye in the parking lot turned to look at her. Professional buyers sizing her up, This woman in the cheap coat with a teenage daughter at her side, clearly desperate, clearly someone who didn't belong here. Rita's eyebrows rose slightly, perhaps in surprise that anyone would bid on such an obvious waste of money. We have $250 from the lady in the back. Do I hear $275? Does anyone want to go $275? The crowd remained silent. Nobody wanted trash bags. Nobody was going to compete for garbage. Going once, Rita called out. Going twice. She paused, giving one final chance for someone to save Elizabeth from her mistake. Sold to the lady with the daughter for $250. Cash or credit? Elizabeth's voice came out barely above a whisper. Cash. Sophie squeezed her hand, and Elizabeth didn't know if it was support or fear or both. She walked forward on legs that felt disconnected from her body, moving through a crowd that parted like she had something contagious. She counted out $250 in worn bills, 10s and 20s and 5s that had been folded and unfolded so many times they were soft as cloth. Rita counted the money twice, made a mark on her clipboard, and handed Elizabeth a receipt and a key. "You've got 72 hours to clear it out completely," Rita said in a tone that suggested she'd said these exact words 1,000 times before. "Everything. Leave it clean or you forfeit your deposit." Elizabeth nodded mutely. She didn't have a deposit to forfeit, didn't have anything left to forfeit except hope itself. They had 3 days to figure out if she'd just saved them or destroyed their last chance at survival. They returned to Unit 47 that afternoon with $13 left to their names. $13 until Elizabeth could sell something, anything, from those trash bags. $13 to keep them fed and mobile and alive. Sophie stood beside her mother as Elizabeth unlocked the unit and rolled up the door for the second time. The bags loomed in front of them like a mountain range of black plastic, intimidating and mysterious, and possibly full of nothing but actual garbage. "Where do we even start, Mom?" Sophie asked quietly, her voice small in the cavernous space. Elizabeth took a deep breath, trying to project confidence she absolutely did not feel. "The beginning, I guess. One bag at a time. We'll figure out what's worth keeping and what needs to go." She grabbed the nearest bag, the plastic crackling in her hands, tore it open, and peered inside. Clothes. Women's clothes. But not just any clothes. Elizabeth recognized expensive brands immediately from her years working in executive offices, from watching CEOs' wives come in for meetings, from window shopping at stores she could never afford. Chico's, Ann Taylor, Talbot's, Eileen Fisher. These were quality pieces, classic styles in neutral colors that never went out of fashion. Slacks and blazers and blouses and cardigans, and the tags were still attached. She pulled out a blazer in charcoal gray, checked the tag. $149. Never worn. The tag was still attached with the plastic fastener. She opened another bag, hands moving faster now. More clothes, dresses and skirts and lightweight sweaters. All the same size, size 12, all with tags, all brand new and never worn. "Sophie, look at this." Elizabeth's voice was shaking. "These have never been worn. Look at the tags. They're all brand new. Why would someone buy all these clothes and never wear them?" Sophie pulled out a dress, navy blue with a simple, elegant cut. "This is really nice, Mom. And it still has the price tag, $98. They opened bag after bag, each one revealing more clothing. Some pieces had been worn, but most hadn't. The sizes were consistent throughout. 12 for tops and bottoms, 9 for shoes. Whoever had owned this storage unit had been a woman roughly Elizabeth's size. A woman with expensive taste and apparently a lot of money to spend on clothes she never wore. But why trash bags? Why store everything in trash bags instead of proper garment bags or storage containers? And why abandon it all? Why let it go to auction? Elizabeth started checking the receipts that were still tucked into some of the bags, crumpled pieces of paper that had been saved for some reason. The same name appeared again and again. Eleanor Blackwood. Eleanor Blackwood. Eleanor Blackwood. All these belongings, all these carefully chosen expensive items belonged to one person. But who was Eleanor Blackwood? And what had happened to her that her belongings ended up in a storage unit, forgotten and abandoned until they went to auction? There was a story here. Elizabeth could feel it. A story of a life that had somehow gone wrong or simply ended in a way that left everything behind. The fourth bag they opened contained purses. Coach bags, 6 of them. Elizabeth handled them carefully, reverently almost. She'd always wanted a Coach bag, but could never justify spending that kind of money on something to carry her keys and wallet in. These were the real thing, authentic leather with the signature C pattern and quality hardware. $300 each, maybe $400, in pristine condition. She set them aside carefully, her mind already calculating. She could sell these. Consignment shops would take them, online marketplaces. This could keep them fed for weeks, maybe even get them back into a motel for a while. They were going to be okay. They were actually going to be okay. The 5th bag revealed shoes. So many shoes. 9 West, Naturalizer, Clark's. Some still in boxes, never worn. Others gently used but well maintained. Elizabeth found herself crying as she went through them, overwhelmed by relief and gratitude and the sheer absurd luck of it all. They'd been sleeping in their car last night. They'd been down to $13 and no prospects and winter coming fast. And now they had this unexpected windfall from a stranger's life, this miracle that came in black trash bags. "Thank you," she whispered to Eleanor Blackwood. "Whoever you were, wherever you are now. Thank you for saving us. Thank you for this gift you didn't even know you were giving." Sophie had climbed over bags to reach the back corner of the unit where the dresser stood. "Mom?" Her voice had a strange quality to it, something between excitement and uncertainty. Elizabeth looked up, wiping tears from her face. Sophie was holding something, a box of some kind, wooden and dark and clearly old. "It's a jewelry box," Sophie said, bringing it closer. "And Mom, it's beautiful. Look at the inlay work." Elizabeth took the box carefully. It was heavier than she expected. Solid hardwood with an intricate pattern of lighter wood inlaid on the lid, flowers and vines in an Art Nouveau style. This was craftsmanship. This was art. She tried to open it, but it was locked. A small keyhole was set into the front panel. "We need to find the key. It has to be here somewhere. If Eleanor kept this box, if she locked it, there must be something important inside." They searched methodically for over an hour, going through bags with renewed purpose, checking every pocket, every compartment, every fold of fabric. They found more treasures as they searched. Designer scarves, Hermes and Burberry and Pucci, Brighton jewelry, the collectible pieces that sold at boutiques for hundreds of dollars, Pandora charms, dozens of them still on cards or in little gift boxes, never given to whoever they were meant for. Each discovery made Elizabeth's heart beat faster, made the future seem a little less terrifying. They could sell all of this. They could make thousands of dollars. They could get an apartment, a small one, but a real one with walls and a door and heat. Sophie could have her own room again. Elizabeth could take her time finding a job instead of being desperate and taking anything. Everything was going to change because a stranger had filled a storage unit with beautiful things and then forgotten they existed. Sophie found the key at 5:30, just as the November sun was starting to set, and the temperature in the unheated storage unit was dropping toward freezing. It was in a Coach wristlet, a small clutch purse tucked into an interior pocket, along with some old receipts. She held up the tiny brass key triumphantly. "Mom, I found it! I found the key!" Elizabeth took it with trembling hands, her fingers numb from the cold. The keyhole was small, and it took her 3 tries to get the key inserted properly. She turned it. The lock clicked with a sound that seemed unnaturally loud in the quiet space. The lid lifted on hinges that moved smoothly, well-oiled despite years of storage, and Elizabeth stopped breathing. Inside, Nestled in compartments lined with black velvet that had faded to gray in places, was jewelry. Real jewelry. Not costume pieces from department stores, not fashion jewelry that turned your skin green. The real thing. There were complete matching sets, a necklace and earrings in 14-karat white gold, small diamonds catching the fading light and throwing tiny rainbows, another set with deep blue sapphires, the stones the color of midnight, a pearl bracelet that looked like it dated from the 1940s or 50s, the clasp marked with a jeweler's stamp. Elizabeth couldn't quite read in the dim light, a brooch shaped like a flower with garnets, the Victorian style unmistakable, rings, a man's wedding band, simple gold, the inside inscribed with words worn smooth by time and wear, a woman's wedding set, diamond engagement ring with matching band, the diamonds small but beautifully cut, more necklaces, more earrings, pins and bracelets and pieces that looked like they belonged behind glass in a museum instead of forgotten in a storage unit. Elizabeth had no idea what any of it was worth, but she knew it was substantial. Thousands of dollars, maybe tens of thousands, maybe even more. Her mind couldn't quite process it. This morning, they'd had $263 and no prospects. Tonight, they had designer clothes and handbags and real gold and diamonds. How was this even real? How did this happen? Sophie's eyes were huge in her pale face. Mom, are these real? Like really real? Elizabeth nodded, unable to speak around the tightness in her throat. They're real, sweetheart. They're very, very real. And I think we just got the miracle we needed. She hugged Sophie tightly, both of them crying now, relief and joy and overwhelming gratitude pouring out in tears. That night they slept in their car in the storage facility parking lot, but it felt completely different from every other night they'd spent in the Honda. Elizabeth held the jewelry box on her lap, wrapped carefully in one of Eleanor's expensive scarves for protection. She'd locked the storage unit with the best lock she could afford, checking it 3 times before finally walking away. Tomorrow, she would start the process of selling things. Tomorrow, she would turn these beautiful abandoned items into the cash they desperately needed. But tonight, she just held her daughter and looked up at the stars through the windshield and felt something she hadn't felt in 18 months. She felt hope. Real, solid, justified hope. Thomas, she thought, sending the words out into the universe. I don't know if you're out there. I don't know if you can hear me. But we made it. We found a way through. I kept my promise. I kept Sophie safe. We're going to be okay. The next morning, Elizabeth selected 3 Coach bags and 2 pairs of designer shoes, items she could sell quickly for cash. She drove to a consignment shop called Second Time Around that she'd passed a dozen times but never had reason to enter. The owner was a woman named Marie, probably in her 60s, with sharp eyes and careful hands. She examined each item meticulously, checking authenticity tags, running her fingers over seams, inspecting hardware and stitching. These are excellent quality, Marie finally said. Real leather, authentication tags intact, no damage or excessive wear. I can move these fast. I'll give you $600 cash for all 5 pieces. Take it or leave it, but I'm being fair. $600 felt like a fortune. Elizabeth took it without negotiating. They ate a real breakfast at a diner for the first time in 2 months. Pancakes and scrambled eggs and bacon and orange juice and coffee that came in actual ceramic mugs. Sophie ate until she was full, truly full, not just taking the edge off hunger. Elizabeth paid the bill and tipped generously, remembering what it was like to work for tips, how much each dollar mattered. They paid for 3 nights at a decent motel, not the weekly place with the mildew smell, but somewhere clean with real towels and a working shower. They bought Sophie new clothes from Walmart, jeans that actually fit and shirts without stains. Elizabeth got new underwear and socks, small dignities she'd been doing without, and they still had money left over. $400, more money than Elizabeth had possessed at one time in over a year. with a safe place to sleep and food in their stomachs, Elizabeth could finally turn her attention to the jewelry. She needed to know what it was worth. She needed to find a reputable buyer who wouldn't take advantage of her desperation. But more than that, she needed to know who Eleanor Blackwood was. Why had all of this been abandoned? Why hadn't family members claimed it? Every piece in that jewelry box represented money spent, choices made, occasions celebrated. Wedding rings meant a marriage. The pearls looked like an heirloom. Someone had loved these things enough to keep them, to lock them away safely. And then they'd been forgotten, left behind. It bothered Elizabeth more than she wanted to admit. "What happened to you, Eleanor?" she whispered to herself, holding the jewelry box. "What happened to make your family forget you existed?" She started her research that evening in the motel room while Sophie did homework at the small desk. The motel had Wi-Fi, slow and occasionally glitchy but functional. Elizabeth searched for Eleanor Blackwood, and several results came up. There was an Eleanor Blackwood who was a teacher in Oregon, another who was a realtor in Florida. But one name kept appearing in local news articles: Eleanor Blackwood, prominent businesswoman and philanthropist. That had to be her. The articles painted a picture of success and achievement. Eleanor had owned Blackwood Commercial Properties, a real estate company specializing in office buildings and retail spaces. She'd been active in community organizations, serving on the boards of 3 different nonprofits. She'd received awards for her charitable work, for her business acumen, for her dedication to improving the city. The photos showed a handsome woman with silver hair and kind eyes, someone who looked like she'd smile easily and laugh often. But the later articles told a different, sadder story. Eleanor Blackwood had been diagnosed with early-onset dementia at age 68. The disease progressed rapidly. Within 2 years, she'd had to step down from her company and her board positions. Within 3 years, she'd required full-time care. She died at age 72, which according to the obituary was 3 years ago. Cause of death was listed as complications from dementia, which Elizabeth knew was a polite way of saying the disease had destroyed everything until her body simply couldn't function anymore. It was heartbreaking to read. This successful, vibrant woman reduced to nothing by a disease that stole her mind first and her life second. The obituary listed survivors: 3 children, David Blackwood, age 53, an attorney practicing in California; Catherine Blackwood Chen, age 47, a professor at a university 3 states away; Michael Blackwood, age 43, a financial advisor working in Chicago. No mention of the storage unit, no mention of belongings needing to be claimed, just the standard survived by language and a notice that a private memorial service had been held. Elizabeth wondered if the children even knew about the storage unit, if they'd forgotten about it in the chaos of their mother's final years and death, if the rent had lapsed by accident because nobody remembered it existed. She felt a surge of sympathy for them. Losing a parent was devastating. She knew that from personal experience. But losing them to dementia first, watching them disappear while they were still technically alive, that had to be a special kind of torture. On Tuesday morning, Elizabeth took the jewelry box to get it appraised. She tried a pawn shop first, mostly out of curiosity. The pawnbroker, a heavy-set man with suspicious eyes, offered her $3,000 for everything. Elizabeth almost laughed. "That's insulting," the pawnbroker said when he saw her expression. "This is quality merchandise. But I got overhead, I got employees, I got to make a profit. $3,000, take it or leave it." Elizabeth left. She went next to an antique jewelry dealer whose shop she'd found online. The dealer was an older gentleman with a jeweler's loop and decades of experience written in the careful way he handled each piece. "This is good quality work," he said as he examined the 14-karat white gold set with diamonds. "The stones are small but well cut, probably worth $2,000 retail." He picked up the pearl bracelet. Victorian era, I'd say, around the 1890s based on the clasp style. Good condition. To the right buyer, maybe $3,000. The garnet brooch got special attention. This is actually quite rare. Victorian mourning jewelry based on the style. Could fetch $5,000 at auction, maybe more. He went through every piece methodically, making notes, calculating values. When he finished, he looked at Elizabeth over his reading glasses. All together, retail value. You're looking at $40,000 to $50,000. But I can't give you retail. I need to resell these pieces. I need to make my profit. I can offer you $25,000 cash right now, today. $25,000. Elizabeth's mind reeled. It was more money than she'd ever seen in her life, more than she'd made in a year at her old job. It was enough to start over completely, to get a real apartment with a lease, to buy a reliable car, to give Sophie stability and security. It was the answer to months of prayers and desperation. She opened her mouth to say yes, to accept the money and walk out of the store and never look back. But something stopped her. Some instinct she couldn't quite explain. This jewelry had meant something to Eleanor Blackwood. She'd kept it locked in a special box. She'd stored it carefully. These weren't just things to sell, they were memories. They were love. They were milestones in a life. The wedding rings alone told a story of commitment and partnership. "Can I think about it?" Elizabeth heard herself saying. "Can I have some time?" The dealer nodded, unsurprised. "Sure, but my offer is only good for 48 hours. Market prices fluctuate. I need to know soon." Elizabeth thanked him and left with the jewelry box still in her possession. She sat in her car in the parking lot for a long time, trying to understand why she'd hesitated. $25,000 was security. It was everything they needed. But somehow it didn't feel right. Not yet. Not without knowing more about Eleanor. Not without understanding what had happened to this woman's family, why her children had let all of this go. That evening, Elizabeth did more research. She found the 3 Blackwood siblings on social media. David's profile showed a successful attorney, expensive suits, and professional headshots. Catherine had an academics page, papers published and lectures given, and university affiliations. Michael's profile was more personal. Photos of him at the gym and traveling and attending networking events. They all looked successful, well-dressed, accomplished, professional. And according to their social media presence, they didn't seem particularly close to each other. There were no photos of the 3 of them together, no mentions of each other in posts, no signs of family connection or affection, just 3 people who happened to share a mother and apparently nothing else. Elizabeth made a decision. She was going to contact Eleanor's children. She was going to tell them about the storage unit, about their mother's belongings, about everything she'd found. They deserved to know. They deserved the chance to reclaim these pieces of their mother's life. It was the right thing to do, even though it might cost Elizabeth the security she desperately needed. Sophie looked worried when Elizabeth explained her plan. "Mom, we need that money. We're finally okay. Why would you risk that?" Elizabeth pulled her daughter close. "Because it's not really ours, sweetheart. These things belong to someone's mother, someone's grandmother, maybe. They should have the chance to get them back. And if we keep them without trying to find the family, it wouldn't feel earned. It would feel like stealing." Sophie was quiet for a moment, then nodded slowly. "Dad would say the same thing. He'd want us to do the right thing, even if it's hard." "That's how I know it's the right choice," Elizabeth said softly, "because Thomas would absolutely insist on it. Because being desperate doesn't give us the right to keep what isn't ours." Finding contact information for David Blackwood took most of Wednesday. His law firm had a website with a professional email address and contact form. Elizabeth spent an hour composing the message, trying to strike the right tone. "Mr. Blackwood, my name is Elizabeth Turner. I recently purchased Storage Unit 47 at Public Storage on Mitchell Road. I believe this unit contained your mother, Eleanor Blackwood's belongings. I found clothing, personal items, and jewelry that I believe should be returned to you and your siblings. Please contact me at your earliest convenience." She left her cell phone number and hit send before she could second-guess herself. Then she waited. The call came 3 hours later while Sophie was at school. Elizabeth's phone rang with an unknown number. "Hello?" A man's voice responded, professional and cautious. "This is David Blackwood. You sent me a message about my mother's belongings." Elizabeth explained everything: the auction, the trash bags, the designer clothes and Coach purses, the jewelry box with the wedding rings and pearls and precious stones. David was silent for a long time, long enough that Elizabeth thought maybe the call had disconnected. Then he spoke, his voice carefully controlled. "We had no idea that storage unit still existed. My mother rented it years ago before the dementia got bad. We looked for documentation after she died, but we couldn't find any paperwork. We assumed she'd closed it out. The facility didn't contact us. The rent must have come directly from her bank account until the money ran out. We never knew." Elizabeth felt a chill. "So you didn't abandon it deliberately?" "Of course not," David said, and there was something sharp in his voice now, defensive. "We loved our mother. We would never deliberately abandon her things." There was guilt there, Elizabeth realized. Whether or not they'd known about the storage unit, there was guilt. "I'd like to return everything to you and your siblings," Elizabeth said carefully. "These are your mother's belongings. You should have them. You deserve to have them." David was quiet again. Then he sighed, a long exhale that carried what sounded like years of frustration. "There's a complication. My siblings and I aren't exactly on speaking terms. We had a disagreement about our mother's estate. The will was contested. Things got ugly. Lawyers got involved. I haven't spoken to Catherine in 4 years. Michael and I exchange emails maybe twice a year, just basic information, nothing personal. Legally, anything you found in that storage unit is part of the estate, which means it belongs to all 3 of us equally. But I don't know how we divide it. We can't even be in the same room together without fighting." Elizabeth's heart sank. This was more complicated than she'd anticipated. "I could act as a neutral third party," she offered, hearing the hope in her own voice. "I could invite all 3 of you to meet at the storage unit. You could go through your mother's things together, divide them however you think is fair." David laughed, but it was a bitter sound without any real humor. "You don't know my siblings, Mrs. Turner. That would be World War III. Catherine thinks she's morally superior because she's an academic. Michael thinks he deserves more because he's struggling financially. And I'm the evil lawyer who tried to enforce our mother's wishes as written in her will. We're toxic together. It would end in disaster." Elizabeth persisted. Maybe with a neutral person present, it would be different. Maybe being in that storage unit, surrounded by your mother's belongings, seeing the life she had, maybe that would help. You don't have to stay strangers to each other. Your family, that has to count for something. There was a long silence. Then David said quietly, "All right. I'll contact Catherine and Michael. You organize the meeting. Saturday morning, I'll be there. I can't promise they'll come. I can't promise it won't be a disaster. But I'll be there." "Thank you," Elizabeth said, meaning it. "Thank you for being willing to try." After the call ended, she sat in the motel room feeling anxious and uncertain. She'd just risked their financial security on the hope that a broken family might find a way to heal. It might be the stupidest thing she'd ever done, or it might be exactly what Eleanor Blackwood would have wanted. Either way, it was too late to back out now. Saturday morning arrived with cold rain, the kind of miserable November weather that made you want to stay in bed with the covers pulled up. Elizabeth and Sophie arrived at the storage facility at 9 in the morning, 30 minutes before the scheduled meeting. The 3 Blackwood siblings were already there, standing in separate corners of the parking lot like fighters waiting for a bell. Elizabeth recognized them from their social media photos, but in person they looked older and more worn than their carefully curated online images. David was tall and thin with graying hair, wearing an expensive suit that probably cost more than Elizabeth made in a month at her old job. Catherine wore practical rain gear and academic glasses, her face set in an expression that looked like permanent disapproval. Michael was the youngest, early 40s, with the carefully maintained appearance of someone who spent a lot of money on personal trainers and expensive haircuts. None of them were speaking to each other. The tension was so thick Elizabeth could almost see it. She approached with forced cheerfulness, determined to set a positive tone. "Thank you all for coming. I know this is difficult. I appreciate your willingness to work together." David snorted, a derisive sound. "We're not here to work together, Mrs. Turner. We're here to get our legal share of our mother's belongings." Catherine shot him a look that could have frozen water. "Always about the money with you, David. Always about the law and percentages and legal shares. Never about what Mom would have wanted." David's face flushed angry red. "I'm a lawyer, Catherine. That's how I think. At least I'm honest about it. Unlike some people who pretend to care about Mom's wishes, but were really just angling for a bigger inheritance." Catherine's mouth dropped open. "How dare you suggest that I—" Michael interrupted, his voice tired. "Can we just get this over with? I have a flight back to Chicago this afternoon. I don't have time for another round of the same old argument." Elizabeth unlocked storage unit 47 and rolled up the door. The three siblings stared at the remaining contents. Most of the clothing had been sold, but there were still bags of personal items, photo albums and documents, memorabilia and keepsakes, scarves and jewelry, and all the small, precious things that make up a life. And in Elizabeth's hands, carefully wrapped, was the jewelry box. "This is what's left of your mother's belongings," she said quietly. "Personal items, photos from your childhoods, some very valuable jewelry. I've sold some of the clothing to pay for food and shelter for my daughter and myself. I apologize for that. I didn't know you existed. I didn't know anyone would want these things. I hope you can understand." David waved a dismissive hand. "The clothes are fine. We don't care about clothes, but the jewelry needs to be professionally appraised and divided by value." They spent the next hour going through bags, and it was painful to watch. David wanted to inventory everything with monetary value, making notes on his phone about items that could be sold. Catherine kept finding photos and bursting into tears. Michael was on his phone half the time, clearly wishing he was anywhere else, responding to emails and texts while his siblings argued. They found albums filled with pictures of the three of them as children, birthday parties where they'd smiled at cameras with cake-smeared faces, graduations where they'd worn caps and gowns and looked proud, family vacations to beaches and mountains and theme parks. They found report cards with grades ranging from excellent to barely passing. They found certificates for achievements long forgotten. They found drawings they'd made as children, stick figures labeled "Mommy and Daddy and Me." Each discovery sparked either uncomfortable silence or outright arguments. David thought everything should be scanned digitally and then sold or thrown away. Catherine wanted to keep every photo and document. Michael just wanted his third of whatever had cash value. Then Elizabeth brought out the jewelry box. She'd been saving it, hoping it might be a moment of connection, something they could appreciate together. "This is the most valuable item I found. I had it appraised by a professional dealer. He estimated the retail value at $40,000 to $50,000. If you sell to a dealer, you'd probably get $25,000 to $30,000. Or you could divide the pieces among yourselves. Each take what has meaning, what reminds you of your mother, what you want to keep in her memory." The three siblings stared at the box like it was a bomb that might explode. David reached for it first, his movements quick and possessive. "I'll take this to my appraiser. We need a proper valuation before we can divide it fairly." Catherine's hand shot out, grabbing his wrist. "You're not taking that anywhere without us, David. We all agree on the appraiser. We all see the evaluation." Michael finally looked up from his phone, his expression irritated. "Why do you even care so much, Catherine? You make 6 figures as a tenured professor. David makes partner money at his firm. I'm the one who actually needs the cash. My business is struggling. I've got debt. I need my share, and I need it now." This mattered to Mom. Catherine's voice was sharp. The jewelry mattered. The box mattered. We can't just sell it like it's nothing." David's voice rose to match hers. "It is nothing, Catherine. It's metal and stones. Mom is dead. She doesn't care anymore what we do with her jewelry." Michael added fuel to the fire. "At least David's being honest. We all want the money. Stop pretending you're above it, Catherine." The argument escalated quickly, voices rising, old wounds ripped open and bleeding fresh. David accused Catherine of trying to manipulate their mother during the dementia, of visiting more often to influence her decisions. Catherine accused David of contesting the will purely out of greed, of dragging them all through a legal nightmare. Michael accused both of them of not visiting Mom enough in her final years, of being too busy with their important careers to spend time with a dying woman. The words got uglier. Someone mentioned the time David didn't come to their mother's 70th birthday. Catherine brought up Michael's failed first marriage and how Mom had been heartbroken. Michael reminded them both that he'd been the one who'd found Mom when she'd wandered away from her care facility, disoriented and frightened. It was a cascade of resentment and pain and guilt that had been building for years, maybe decades, all pouring out in the cold confines of a storage unit. Elizabeth stood back with Sophie, watching three people who shared blood and history, but had forgotten how to be family. She thought about her own life. Her parents were dead. She'd been an only child. It was just her and Sophie now, the two of them against the world, and she would give anything, absolutely anything, for what these three people were destroying. The connection, the shared memories, the possibility of love and support and understanding. They had siblings, and they were treating each other like enemies. It broke her heart. It made her angry. It made her want to shake all three of them and make them see what they were throwing away. Finally, Elizabeth couldn't stand it anymore. "Stop!" Her voice cracked like a whip in the cold air. All three siblings turned to stare at her, shocked into silence. Elizabeth took a shaky breath, trying to control her anger and her tears, and her overwhelming frustration with these people who had so much and appreciated so little. "Your mother didn't abandon this storage unit. She forgot about it. Dementia took her memory. It took her sense of self. It took everything from her piece by piece until there was nothing left but a body that eventually stopped working. But before that happened, before the disease destroyed who she was, she filled this unit with things that mattered to her. Clothes she'd chosen carefully, jewelry she'd collected and treasured, photos of her, children, of you three, at every stage of your lives." Elizabeth's voice broke, but she pushed on. She put her whole life in here. Every piece of clothing represents a choice she made. Every photo represents a memory she cherished. Every piece of jewelry represents a moment that mattered. That engagement ring, she pointed to the jewelry box. That was the moment your father asked her to marry him. Those wedding bands were the promises they made to each other. Those pearls might have been from her mother or her grandmother, passed down through generations. This isn't just stuff to be divided up and sold. This is her. This is the woman who gave birth to you and raised you and loved you even when you were difficult or disappointing or distant. And you're fighting over it like it's just money, like it's just things. But it's not. It's her legacy. It's her love. And she deserves better than this. The storage unit was dead silent. Catherine had tears streaming down her face. David looked uncomfortable, his lawyer mask cracking. Michael had put his phone away finally, giving Elizabeth his full attention. Elizabeth continued, her voice softer now but no less intense. "I lost my husband 18 months ago. Cancer. He was 49 years old. We thought we had decades left together. We had plans for retirement and grandchildren and growing old side by side. But we got 11 months of hospitals and treatments that didn't work and watching him disappear. When he died, I would have given everything I owned, everything I ever hoped to own, for one more day with him. One more hour. One more chance to tell him I loved him and hear him say it back." She looked at each of the siblings in turn. "You three still have each other. You still have the chance to be a family. You still have the possibility of connection and love and support, but you're wasting it. You're throwing it away over money and old grudges and wounded pride. Your mother is gone. You can't get her back, but you can honor her. You can be the family she wanted you to be. You can love each other the way she loved you. Or you can keep fighting and hating and destroying the last pieces of family you have left. It's your choice. But whatever you decide, remember that she's watching. Maybe not literally. I don't know what happens after we die. But in your memories, in your hearts, she's watching. And I think she'd be heartbroken to see you like this. Elizabeth picked up the jewelry box and set it carefully on an overturned crate. I'm going to leave you 3 alone. You can divide this however you want. You can sell it all and split the money. You can keep it all and fight over who gets what. You can throw it in the trash for all I care. But before you decide, think about what your mother would want. Think about whether she'd be proud of how you're treating each other. Think about whether this is really how you want to honor her memory and her legacy. Think about whether money and stuff are really worth losing your family over. She took Sophie's hand. We'll be in our car. Take all the time you need. She walked away, leaving the 3 Blackwood siblings standing among their mother's abandoned belongings, forced finally to confront what they'd become. Elizabeth and Sophie sat in the Honda for 2 hours. The rain had stopped, but the sky remained gray and heavy. Sophie did homework, writing an essay about family for her English class. Elizabeth stared out the window and wondered if she'd made things better or worse. Maybe she should have just kept the jewelry and said nothing. Maybe trying to do the right thing had been naive and stupid. Maybe she just caused more pain for people who were already hurting. A knock on the window made her jump. Catherine Blackwood stood outside, her face red from crying, but her expression calmer. "We'd like to talk to you," she said quietly. "All 3 of us, if you have time." Elizabeth nodded and followed Catherine back to the storage unit. Inside, the atmosphere had completely changed. David was sitting on the floor, his expensive suit getting dirty, holding a photo album open on his lap. Michael was leaning against the wall with his phone in his pocket, not even visible. Catherine gestured for Elizabeth to sit on an overturned box. "We've been talking," she said, her voice rough with emotion. "Really talking. For the first time in years, maybe the first time in decades. And we realized something important. We forgot what matters. We got so caught up in legal disputes and old resentments and hurt feelings that we forgot we're family. We forgot that Mom loved us, all of us, even when we disappointed her, even when we fought, even when we were terrible to each other. She never stopped loving us." David looked up from the album. "There's a photo here from my 8th birthday. Mom made me a cake shaped like a castle. I wanted to be a knight. I'd completely forgotten. I was so obsessed with King Arthur that year." Catherine sat down next to him, looking at the photo. "I remember that party. Michael knocked the castle over running inside, and you cried. Mom spent an hour fixing it while we all waited. She could have just cut into it and served it ruined, but she wanted it to be perfect for you." Michael cleared his throat, looking uncomfortable but determined to participate. "I found something too, in one of the bags." He held up a piece of paper, yellowed with age, covered in shaky handwriting. "It's a letter. From Mom. The date is from 3 years ago, just a few months before she died." He started reading, his voice breaking on almost every line. "Dear David, Catherine, and Michael, I know my memory is going. The doctor explained everything today, and I understand what's coming. The dementia is progressing faster than they hoped. Soon I won't remember you. I won't remember your faces or your names or the 1,000 little moments that made me so proud to be your mother. But right now, while I still can, I want to write this down. I love you. I have always loved you. Even when you fought with each other, even when you disappointed me, even when you broke my heart with your stubbornness and your pride, you're my children, my greatest accomplishment, my deepest joy. The best thing I ever did with my life was bring you into this world." Michael's voice was barely audible now, tears making the words shake. "I'm storing some things in a safe place. A storage unit where I've put the belongings that matter most, photos and jewelry and memories. I hope you'll find it someday. I hope you'll go through these things together. I hope you'll remember me, but more than that, I hope you'll remember each other. I hope you'll forgive whatever hurts you've inflicted on each other. I hope you'll be a family, not just siblings who share DNA, but real family who love and support and care for each other. That's all I ever wanted. That's what I'm asking for now. Please don't let me down. Please don't let each other down. Please be the family I always knew you could be. All my love, always and forever, Mom." The silence in the storage unit was profound and sacred. David was crying openly now, this composed professional man reduced to the little boy who'd wanted a castle cake. Catherine had her arm around him. Michael was wiping his eyes with the back of his hand. They looked at each other, really looked, maybe for the first time in years. And something shifted. Some wall came down. Some bridge was rebuilt. David stood up slowly and walked over to Catherine. His voice was rough. "I'm sorry. For everything. For being a controlling jerk who made everything about rules and laws. For contesting the will. For not calling you. For letting years go by without trying to fix what was broken. I'm sorry, Katie." She pulled him into a hug, and they held each other like people who'd been lost and finally found their way home. Michael joined them, and suddenly all three siblings were hugging and crying and holding on like their lives depended on it. Elizabeth slipped out of the storage unit quietly, not wanting to intrude on this private moment of reunion and healing. She stood outside in the cold November air and let herself cry. For Thomas. For the family she'd lost when he died. For Eleanor Blackwood, who'd tried so hard to keep her children together. For these three broken people who'd finally found their way back to each other. Sophie came to stand beside her mother. "You did that?" Sophie said softly. "You helped them find each other again." Elizabeth shook her head. "No, sweetheart, their mother did that. Eleanor did that. I just made them listen." They stood together in silence, waiting, giving the Blackwood siblings the time and space they needed to remember how to be family. After a long while, maybe 30 minutes or more, the three siblings emerged from the storage unit. Their eyes were red and swollen from crying, but their faces had changed completely. They looked lighter somehow, younger, more open. Like years of carrying resentment and anger had been lifted away. David approached Elizabeth first. "We've made a decision about the jewelry. We'd like you to have it, all of it." Elizabeth's mouth dropped open. "What? No, absolutely not. That's your mother's jewelry. That's your inheritance. That belongs to your family." Catherine stepped forward, her voice gentle but firm. "It's too complicated for us to keep. Too many painful memories attached. Every time we'd look at these pieces, we'd remember the fights and the lawyers and how close we came to losing each other completely. But you need them, Mrs. Turner. You said your husband died. You said you're struggling. Please take the jewelry. Sell it. Use the money to build a new life for yourself and your daughter. Our mother would want that. She'd want her belongings to help someone who needs help." Michael nodded his agreement. "Consider it a finder's fee, or a thank you gift. You brought us back together. You reminded us what family means. You did what our mother couldn't do in her final years, because the dementia took her ability to communicate. You spoke for her. You delivered her message. That's worth more than jewelry." Elizabeth shook her head, overwhelmed. "I can't accept this. It's too much. You don't understand how much it's worth." David smiled, and it was the first genuine smile Elizabeth had seen from him. "You gave us something invaluable. You gave us each other back. You gave us the chance to be the family Mom wanted. Please let us give you something in return. It's what she would have wanted. Please don't refuse this. Don't refuse her final gift." Elizabeth looked at the three of them, then back at Sophie standing nearby. Her daughter nodded encouragement. "It's okay, Mom. Take it. It's a gift, and we could really use a miracle right now." With shaking hands, Elizabeth accepted the jewelry box that Catherine held out to her. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice choked with tears. "I don't know what else to say, just thank you. Thank you for trusting me. Thank you for letting me be part of your story." Catherine hugged her, this stranger who'd become something more in the course of a morning. "Thank you for caring about our mother. Thank you for doing the right thing when it would have been so much easier to just keep everything and say nothing. Thank you for being the kind of person who sees jewelry worth thousands of dollars and thinks about returning it to people you've never met. Thank you for being you." David and Michael added their thanks and their contact information. "If you ever need anything," David said, "job references or legal help or anything at all, you call me." Catherine offered the same. Michael added, "We take care of family, and you're family now. You're part of Mom's legacy. You're part of what she left behind. The good part, the part that matters." The three siblings stayed at the storage unit for another hour, going through photos and dividing them carefully. They made plans to meet for dinner that evening, the first family meal in 5 years. They exchanged new phone numbers, promising to actually use them this time, to call and text and stay in real contact, not just Christmas cards and birthday messages, but actual conversations, real relationship, real family. As they prepared to leave, Catherine turned back to Elizabeth. "What will you do now?" Elizabeth hugged the jewelry box to her chest like it contained her whole future, which in a way it did. "Find an apartment where Sophie can have her own room, get her back in school properly, look for work, start building a life again. It's been 18 months of survival mode. It'll be nice to actually live instead of just exist." Over the next 2 weeks, Elizabeth sold the jewelry piece by piece. She didn't rush. She researched each item thoroughly. She found specialists and collectors and auction houses that would give fair prices. The pearl bracelet went to an estate jewelry expert for $4,000. The Victorian garnet brooch sold at auction for $6,200, more than the original appraisal. The 14-karat gold sets, the diamond rings, the sapphire necklaces, everything found the right buyer at the right price. When the last piece sold, Elizabeth had made $43,000. More money than she'd ever imagined having at one time. More than enough to completely transform their lives. She cried when she deposited the final check, not from sadness, but from overwhelming gratitude. Eleanor Blackwood, a woman she'd never met but felt like she knew, had saved them, had given them a second chance, had made it possible for them to not just survive, but actually thrive. With the money, Elizabeth did everything she dreamed of during those long nights in the Honda. She paid first and last month's rent, plus security deposit on a 2-bedroom apartment in a good school district. She bought furniture, not expensive stuff, but real furniture that was theirs. A couch and beds and a kitchen table. She enrolled Sophie in school with all the supplies and clothes she needed. She bought a reliable used car, a Toyota with low mileage and a warranty. She set aside $5,000 for emergencies, money that would stay in savings and only be touched if absolutely necessary. She started a college fund for Sophie with $10,000, and she reserved $10,000 for something special, something meaningful, something Eleanor would have approved of. She was going to start a business. Second Chance Treasures opened 6 months later. It was a small storefront in a modest strip mall, but it was hers. A consignment shop specializing in estate sales, storage unit finds, and helping people downsize with dignity. Elizabeth offered fair prices and honest dealing. She took time to hear people's stories, to understand why they were selling grandmother's china or their mother's jewelry collection. She made the process respectful and kind. Sophie helped on weekends and after school, learning about business and inventory and customer service. The grand opening was attended by all 3 Blackwood siblings, who'd become regular fixtures in Elizabeth's life over the past months. David had helped with all the legal paperwork. Catherine spread the word among her university colleagues. Michael advised on business planning and financial management. They were family now, not by blood, but by choice and shared experience and genuine affection. Elizabeth placed a framed photograph of Eleanor Blackwood near the register. The photo had come from one of the storage unit bags, showing Eleanor at maybe 60 years old, confident and smiling and elegant. Underneath the photo was a small brass plaque that Elizabeth had custom made, in memory of Eleanor Blackwood, a woman who valued beautiful things and family above all else. This store exists because of her generosity and her legacy. May we all remember what truly matters. Customers asked about the photo regularly. Elizabeth told them the story, or at least the parts she felt comfortable sharing, about finding the storage unit, about discovering the jewelry, about reuniting a broken family. People cried. People shared their own stories of loss and second chances. Second Chance Treasures became more than just a shop. It became a community gathering place where people's stories mattered as much as the items they were buying or selling. Sophie graduated from 8th grade with honors that spring. She'd missed so much school during their homeless period, but she'd worked incredibly hard to catch up. She had friends again. She had activities and plans and a future that looked bright. At the graduation ceremony, Elizabeth sat between David and Catherine. Michael couldn't make it from Chicago but sent flowers and a video message. Sophie gave a brief speech as class valedictorian. She talked about resilience and kindness and the importance of doing the right thing even when it's difficult. She looked directly at her mother and said, "My mom taught me that helping others matters more than helping yourself, that doing what's right is more important than doing what's easy, that family isn't always about blood. Sometimes it's about the people who show up for you when nobody else will. I'm grateful for my mom. I'm grateful for our extended family. I'm grateful for second chances." Elizabeth cried. Everyone cried. It was perfect. 1 year after opening Second Chance Treasures, Elizabeth received a letter from an attorney's office. Inside was a check for $25,000 and a letter from the 3 Blackwood siblings. "Dear Elizabeth," the letter began. "When we finally settled our mother's estate, we discovered something interesting. Mom had made a provision in her will that we'd missed during our initial fighting. She set aside money specifically for anyone who helped reunite her family. The will stated that if her children were estranged at the time of her death, and if someone brought them back together, that person should receive $25,000 from her estate. We think you more than qualify. This money is from Mom, delivered from beyond the grave. Her final gift, her way of saying thank you for doing what she couldn't do in her final years, for caring enough to make her children listen, for honoring her memory by helping her family heal. Please accept this with our love and gratitude. Your family, David, Catherine, and Michael." Elizabeth used part of the money to expand Second Chance Treasures. She hired 2 employees, both women who'd experienced hard times and needed second chances themselves. She donated to local charities that helped homeless families, remembering what it felt like to sleep in a car and wondering if anyone would help. She established a scholarship fund at Sophie's school specifically for students whose families were experiencing housing insecurity or financial crisis, and she added the rest to Sophie's college fund, which was growing steadily. College was only 4 years away now. Sophie wanted to study social work, inspired by Eleanor's legacy and her mother's example of kindness. She wanted to help families in crisis. She wanted to give people the kind of second chance that had saved her and her mother. Elizabeth was so proud she could barely contain it. The 5-year anniversary of buying Storage Unit 47 was celebrated with a party at the store. The Blackwood siblings all flew in for the occasion. David from California, where he'd started doing pro bono work for nonprofits. Catherine from her university, where she'd written a book about family reconciliation. Michael from Chicago, where he'd started a foundation helping small businesses in underserved communities. They brought their families, spouses, and children who'd gotten to know Elizabeth and Sophie over the years through visits and video calls and holidays spent together. They brought food and stories and laughter. David raised a toast to Elizabeth Turner, who bought a storage unit full of trash bags and found a family inside, who reminded 3 stubborn siblings what matters most, who honored our mother better than we did. We love you. We're grateful for you. Always," Catherine added to Eleanor Blackwood, who left us more than jewelry and clothes. She left us each other. She left us the lesson we needed to learn. She left us love. Michael finished, "To second chances, to families who find each other, to women who change lives by choosing kindness, to Elizabeth and Eleanor, connected across time by compassion." That night, after everyone had left and the store was quiet, Elizabeth sat in her office looking at Eleanor's photograph. 5 years, she said softly to the image. 5 years since I bought your storage unit. 5 years since my life changed completely. Thank you. Thank you for your treasures. But more than that, thank you for teaching me something important. The most valuable things we own are never the things we can hold in our hands. They're the connections we make, the love we share, the kindness we show, the families we choose. You knew that. You tried to teach your children that. And in the end, even after you were gone, you succeeded. Sophie, now 18 and preparing for college, came into the office. "Ready to go home, Mom?" Elizabeth stood and hugged her daughter. "More than ready. Let's go home." And home meant something now, not just a physical place, but a feeling. Safety, security, love, family. All the things Elizabeth had thought they'd lost forever during those dark months in the Honda, all the things Eleanor Blackwood had helped them find again. Years continued to pass. Sophie excelled in college, studying social work with a minor in business management. She wanted to run nonprofits someday to help people the way her mother had been helped. Elizabeth expanded Second Chance Treasures into 3 locations, each one serving a different neighborhood but all maintaining the same mission of dignity and fair dealing. She employed dozens of people over the years, many of them people facing their own second chances. Former addicts in recovery, women leaving abusive relationships, individuals re-entering society after incarceration, people who just needed someone to believe in them. She gave them jobs and training and a place where their past didn't define their future. The Blackwood siblings remained close, a genuine miracle that none of them took for granted. They had annual family reunions, rotating between their different cities. They included Elizabeth and Sophie in everything: holidays, birthdays, graduations, weddings. They'd become the extended family neither Elizabeth nor Sophie had expected, but both desperately needed. David retired from law and devoted himself to social justice work. Catherine's book on family reconciliation became required reading in therapy programs. Michael's foundation had helped hundreds of small business owners. They all credited their mother and Elizabeth for changing their lives, for showing them what mattered, for giving them back each other. When Sophie got married at 25, Elizabeth walked her down the aisle through tears of joy and gratitude. Thomas should have been there to give their daughter away, but Elizabeth knew he was watching somehow. The ceremony was beautiful. David officiated, having gotten ordained online specifically for this purpose. Catherine did a reading about love and family and the unexpected paths that lead us home. Michael gave a toast at the reception that had everyone laughing and crying. It was perfect. It was family. During the reception, Elizabeth stepped outside for air. The venue overlooked a lake, and the sunset painted the sky in shades of pink and gold. She stood there thinking about everything, about Thomas and Eleanor, about storage units and jewelry boxes, about how life could change in an instant if you were brave enough to take a risk. Kind. Enough to do the right thing and wise enough to recognize that treasure comes in many forms. Sophie found her mother outside. "Happy?" she asked, linking her arm through Elizabeth's. "Beyond happy," Elizabeth replied. "Grateful, blessed, lucky." Sophie laughed. "We were never lucky, Mom. We had you. You made the right choices. You took the risks. You did the work. That's not luck. That's courage." Elizabeth shook her head. "I just did what anyone would do." Sophie's expression turned serious. "No, Mom. Most people would have kept the jewelry and never contacted the family. Most people would have taken the money and run. You gave 3 people back to themselves. You honored a stranger's memory. You did the right thing when it was impossibly hard. That's not ordinary. That's extraordinary. And that's why you're my hero. That's why you'll always be my hero." They stood together watching the sunset, mother and daughter, 2 people who'd survived homelessness and poverty and loss and come out stronger. Behind them in the reception venue, the Blackwood family laughed and celebrated and made memories. A family that shouldn't exist, but did, because of kindness and second chances and one woman's refusal to take the easy path. Elizabeth thought about Eleanor's letter, the one that had changed everything. Please be a family. Please don't let each other down. They hadn't let her down. They'd honored her. They'd remembered. They'd loved. And in doing so, they'd created something beautiful that would last for generations. For Elizabeth Turner, Storage Unit 47 had looked like a disaster. Black trash bags and forgotten things and a desperate gamble that could have ended in failure. But it wasn't a disaster. It was destiny. It was the beginning of everything good that came after. She'd found treasure, yes, $43,000 worth of jewelry, but the real treasure had never been in the jewelry box. The real treasure was in the connections forged, the family created, the love shared, the proof that kindness matters and people matter more than things, always and forever and without exception. That was Eleanor's legacy. That was what she'd wanted to teach her children. And through Elizabeth, through one desperate woman with her last $250, that lesson had finally been learned and passed forward to a new generation. The moon rose over the lake. The celebration continued inside, and Elizabeth stood with her daughter, surrounded by chosen family, filled with gratitude for every moment that had led to this one, and knew with absolute certainty that every choice she'd made had been right. Every risk had been worth it. Every moment of uncertainty and fear and desperation had been necessary to bring them to this place of peace and love and belonging. The treasures were never in the trash bags. They were in the hearts of people who chose kindness, who chose love, who chose each other over everything else. And that treasure would last forever, passed down through generations, a legacy of second chances and family, and the beautiful, unexpected ways that strangers become beloved.